season 3 of The Handmaid's Tale continued to push the envelope as the darkest, most intense drama on TV. I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor at Gold Derby. I'm here with OT Fagbenle, who stars as Luke. Fast forwarding to the very end of season 3, OT, Luke is there with all these children, but he's still desperately pining for his family back in Gilead. Were you satisfied with the way the season ended on a bittersweet note for him?
Yeah, well, you know, what was great about that moment in a way was there was a kind of, it wasn't really written so much originally around Luke and Luke's story of his relationship with, you know, not being there with his family and hoping that his kid comes off the plane. But as is the way, you know, Handmaid can be so responsive, the staff, Bruce Miller, and in particular, Mike, our director, just kind of saw the opportunity there and exploited this moment where, you know, the big unsaid thing, I think I said like 5 words in that scene, in that last scene, the big unsaid thing is lack of having family there. And what's interesting with what we're all going through to some extent now is being apart from family. A lot of us are experiencing that, whether it's being in different countries. My family is very split across. In fact, I have 2 sisters who were traveling at the time when all the borders started closing down. My little brother was trying to come and join us in Tanzania, but the border closed. I think a lot of people are feeling a little bit of that at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. People are either at home, stuck at home, you know, isolating, or they're displaced depending on where they are. And isn't it like almost uncanny that when we watch Handmaids, we're watching a dystopian near future world in which things have turned upside down, and we're currently in something very similar, perhaps maybe different but similar, you know what I mean? And the question is, does it ever amaze you how prescient or how similar The Handmaid's Tale can be to real-world events, and in particular religious suppression and fundamentalism and political corruption and misogyny, and how there's a lot of parallels, disturbingly?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of why that source material has been so popular, and the unfortunate part of it is that its universality hasn't diminished that much over time. And so, but I think with that, with lots of great pieces of art, and I think, you know, Margaret Atwood's book and Bruce Miller's writing, yeah, people get to reflect their own experience on it in specific ways. And maybe it's being in a part of an authoritarian government, or maybe it's having an oppressive husband in your house, or, you know, maybe it's to do with class differential and feeling that there's no way to break that. I think lots of people relate to the show in different ways. And that's true of, I think, lots of really good pieces of art and music.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk a bit more in some detail about Luke's journey over season 3, because you had a really good season. I thought season 2 was really strong for you, and perhaps maybe we wouldn't see as much of Luke this season, but we saw quite a bit of your character, which is great, especially for you, given that you play him. Firstly, I think one of the highlights that you probably have spoken about ad nauseum is the airport scene in episode 5, Unknown Caller. That was such a highlight for you, and for Yvonne, and she felt that way too. We spoke a few days ago, and she said it was amazing how you both zoned in very quickly and knew exactly where you wanted that scene to go. Do you feel that way as well?
Right. Sorry, you're breaking up a bit. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Yvonne mentioned that you were both very clear about how you wanted that scene to go, and you came kind of ready to kind of attack each other as the 2 characters. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, well, I guess the thing is, I was really excited, number one, to work with Yvonne, because she's just an extraordinary talent. And I think as an artist, you always want to work with other great artists because they stretch you and you can learn from them and stuff. And I remember when we were going to rehearse it, you know, our director brought us in and we're like, you know, do you want to run the scene? And we were both like, no, we kind of just wanted we talked about the scene, and we talked about, you know, the things that were going on. Colin Watkinson, incidentally, our amazing Emmy Award-winning DOP, was the director of that episode. But we both just like, let's go at it and let the cameras be rolling when we get to it. And it was such a pleasure. She's so good, and so lovely as well. It's a real. I'm in love with our cast, so I might wax lyrical.
Right. You're very lucky. You do have a pretty fantastic cast. She said it was like two opposing forces kind of going at each other, and that's how we felt as viewers. But I tell you what, I felt like Luke had the upper hand throughout quite a lot of that. But then, and because Serena's guard is let down temporarily, but as the meeting ends, he is reminded that she is very much in control of June's fate. And you did some great work without really saying a lot. You had this look of horror, or maybe it was disgust and horror and a whole bunch of things. And I'm just wondering if you could take us back to the end of that scene and what you were trying to achieve with Luke's reaction to Serena's veiled threat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you caught that, because I think, one of the things to the writing credit is that it's often very subtle. It's often very much in the subtext. And as we spoke through the scene together, there were a couple of things we were looking at. I mean, one of them was the physical dynamic of who sits down first. Is it a concession in the scene of the power dynamics to take a seat first? And at what point does Luke think, okay, he's going to sit down? And so at that moment where she says something which could be taken as innocuous, which is that, she has looked out for my wife, we kind of, as a group, kind of realized actually that could be a threat, or at very least it could be taken like a threat. And it was this kind of like confluence of director and writing and both actors, but also the editing, which kind of really honed in on that moment. And then, the power shift changes. Luke stands up, and in that instance, I think standing up kind of represented some level of concession before actually handing over the baby. Some, you've been attacked and you retreat kind of thing, fight or flight, and he flights.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so fascinating to watch. And then you get to listen to the tape that June has recorded for your character. I imagine it would be challenging to do a scene on your own. Is that, as an actor throughout your career, do you find that more challenging, or it doesn't really make a difference depending on what's going on with the director?
Well, this is one of the advantages of working with someone like Lizzie Moss, is that she went and recorded the tape. I wasn't by myself. I had her there in my ear. But actually, to be honest, at the point, and again, this is because we have just extraordinary editors. It can't be said enough how much of a show is put together after you filmed it. And because I knew how good they were, I also just allowed myself, and I knew Colin, on camera would be able to capture it, that I knew I could just actually put that away and just allow myself to go through a journey of emotions. And the editor would go there and he would carve out something which worked with whatever Lizzie's end performance ended up being. And so in answer to your question, I think that there are different advantages to doing a scene by yourself as to working with another actor and seeing Yvonne in front of you and all the subtle things she does with her face and things. So, it's a mixed bag. But I was so happy with the way that scene worked out, and in no small part, Colin, our director.
Yeah, I don't know if that was his first time directing an episode. He's such an accomplished cinematographer. And he did such an amazing job on that episode, like really, really did. I can't wait to talk to him. The other episode for you is the penultimate one, with the big meeting between your character and Fred Waterford when he's detained in Canada. There's two aspects I want to talk about there, because it was a meeting that I've been longing for a very long time. The first thing is, we think it's going to be a one-sided attack on Fred, but he actually fires a shot at Luke by calling him out. Where were you when the birth rates were plummeting, right? And it highlights the nuanced theme in the show about complicity and complacency, which might have paved the way for Luke. Right. Does that weigh on Luke? And what are your thoughts on that aspect?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, much of the way... It's great questions, by the way. But much of the way that I view Luke, one of my kind of ways in for Luke, is the weight of his failure to stand up, to try and, stop what was going on a national level there, but also on a personal level, his failure to be able to protect his family, his failure as a man, his failure as a husband and a father, and his guilt connected with that. When so many times, like when Luke in the first season, when he reads that note from June, I mean, so much of the emotion was connected to the idea that she isn't sitting there thinking you berating him for his failures, because that's what he's been doing in his own head, and that's what he continues to do, is thinking, are my failures responsible for the plight of my wife and my daughter? Are my failures responsible for the situation, for the reason why she's had a kid with someone else, for everything, So I think it's a really big part of his makeup, as pathological as it may be.
Yeah, and Joseph was of the view that he really enjoyed turning that table. I mean, because Fred Waterford is despicable, and we all love Luke, but it was a nice way to just turn the tables. But that being said, just having the satisfaction of having Luke and Fred getting into a punch-up was awfully satisfying. What was it like for you guys to do that scene?
Well, to be honest, actually, I mean, it is a moment I have some regret over, to the extent to which I was really keen for that punch to look pathetic, like for it to hurt, for it to be just like a shitty punch, in the same way that, like, Luke is not a good shooter, I wanted him to be a really bad puncher. And the problem is the way we ended up blocking it, was we were quite far apart, and so my punch had to stretch. So it ended up, it was very satisfying to hit him, but I was really hoping to have like a pathetic, like, you know.
Why? Why were you hoping for that, as opposed to just letting him have it?
I know, but you know what it is? It's another part of my personal keys to Luke, which is Luke isn't that typical guy, He's part of this modern man who wears a cardigan and, reads newspapers, and, he's just a metro guy. And I'm keen to keep to that, as much as I, as an actor, might feel cool doing it, or as in defense of the character, might want the character to do it. I kind of feel that that's what's true to Luke as a person.
Yeah, okay, that does make sense, actually, to be honest. What do you want for season 4? I know you guys did about 2 weeks of season 4, and then it all had to stop because of COVID-19. So you probably haven't done much of it yet. But
right.
What we do know or don't know, what can we look forward to for Luke without obviously giving anything away?
Yeah, it's really hard, because I had certain opinions before the season started, and now the season started, and I've kind of had it broken down to me what's actually going to happen. I'm like, wow. This is, the most revolutionary of the 4 seasons. This is the most, like, everything turned on its head, it's really exciting. And there's some things I'm just like, I don't even know how you're going to do that. How are you going to do that? Oh, that's your plan? Oh, yeah? Okay, well, show me. I can't wait to read it. Okay.
Oh, my God.
It's exciting.
I'm beside myself. How long do we have to wait for this stuff? Like, hurry up. I can't wait any longer. Yeah.
This is it.
We just have to be patient, We just have to be patient. I just want to pivot for a sec before we let you go. And for those of us who are not in the UK, you've got this outrageous new comedy out, Max. For those of us not familiar with it, what can you tell us about that project and how much fun you've had doing it?
Well, I got to act, write, and direct this kind of crazy, like you said, outrageous comedy about this pop star, this ex-famous pop star whose career has crashed, and he's desperately trying to make a comeback. And it's going to be on Hulu in the States pretty soon. There should be an announcement about that, and in the UK. And so, it's really worth checking out. And Max, MAXXX.
Yeah.
There's some bits of it cube and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Is it actually as fun as it looks to play a completely self-involved narcissist who's not quite self-aware of how shocking he can be? It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, you know what it is? He's a lot of fun to play. I mean, it's hard because he's also kind of on the verge of a nervous breakdown all the time and trying to cover that up. And so it is quite emotionally challenging. But yeah, I mean, like, I kind of wrote the part as like the kind of part like I want to play, because I spent so much of my career playing like nice boyfriends and then playing nice husbands, and I wanted to go and not playing, you know,
Something different. And now as well, you've joined the Marvel Universe as Black Widow. That's huge. Like, I mean, what are your thoughts on that aspect of your career? Because that's quite an achievement. You know, not everyone can say that.
Yeah, you know, it's a huge honor. It's a huge honor and excitement. But at the same, it is huge. But at the same time, I always try and like connect myself to working with people I respect and on projects which I think are meaningful, and so for me, what attracted me most about this, apart from Scarlett, of course, who's just an amazing talent. But our director, Kate, makes these incredible indie movies, and the script itself is very intimate. It's a very intimate Marvel movie about connection. You know, they say every happy family is alike and every unhappy family is its own little snowflake. You know, it's unhappy in its own unique way. And so, there's that in it. And so that's what really drew me to it. So yeah, listen, I won't lie, like, it's really exciting to be part of the universe and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You know, that ultimately, you know, I like the material.
I'm really keen. I'm not like a huge superhero watcher, but I'm keen for this one because it is, as you say, by Kate. I think she's Australian, indie director, and you know, female perspective, something different. Like that's what we want to see more of, I think. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and yeah, I really think it's going to be a special movie. I hope it is. You know, like I said, so much is in the edit, so we'll find out. But it's in good hands with Kate.
Yeah. Well, OT, it was a great season for your character, Luke. We are really looking forward to season 4. In the meantime, we thank you for your time, and we'll hopefully talk to you again for season 4.
All right, take care. Great talking with you.
Now, everyone, while you're at home, go to Gold Derby, make your predictions, click subscribe. We've got lots of chats with all the Handmaid's Tale cast and crew, and we'll be back obviously soon with more to come. Thanks, everybody.